batch of petitions, including those that have been filed by political parties challenging the Election Commission's decision to conduct a special intensive revision of the electoral rolls in Bihar. Now, the bench comprising Justices Suryakant as well as Joy Mallya Bagchi will consider the response of the parties like the RJD, the AIMIM, as well as the other petitioners in the case. This entire controversy, remember, had began when the Election Commission had announced the SIR exercise aiming to clean up the voter list by removing duplicate or ineligible entries. But the opposition parties alleged that the entire exercise would deprive people of their right to vote. The Supreme Court had previously directed the Election Commission to allow the excluded voters to submit their claims online and also physically, if it's possible, to the Election Commission. So this is a directive that had been given already. So let's quickly take you through the main takeaways from the Supreme Court's last hearing on the matter. Remember, it's an ongoing hearing. The Supreme Court had also previously made some observations. Today, ahead of the hearing, let's tell you what the Supreme Court had said. To the Election Commission, it said that EC must accept the claims form of voters online. So this is a direction that it had given to the Election Commission, saying that 11 listed documents or Aadhaar card should be acceptable. So in fact, it was the Supreme Court. Initially, the Election Commission was not accepting the Aadhaar card as a document, but the Supreme Court directed the Election Commission to take it up. The Bihar CEO should also implead 12 political parties. That was a statement that has come in from the Supreme Court, going on to say the parties must also file an affidavit on the steps that have been taken. So the parties that have filed this plea in the Supreme Court have also been asked to file an affidavit. And what are the steps that they have taken? In fact, the top court also questioned the inaction of the political parties, because the Supreme Court said that you have filed a petition, but as far as the complaints to the Election Commission are concerned, there are no complaints whatsoever that have been filed by the political parties. So the party representatives have also been asked to be present in the hearing. So today they are going to be present in the Supreme Court. That's going to be interesting, because what is the Supreme Court going to say? Is it going to pull up the parties or is it going to be a win for the parties that have been even campaigning on the lines of the SIR? Remember, the court had termed the confusion over the Bihar SIR as largely a trust issue. It had directed the State Legal Service Authority to deploy paralegal volunteers to assist the voters and the political parties. The Election Commission had submitted that these claims and objections can be filed beyond the September 1 deadline that it had placed, but it would be considered only after the electoral roll is finalized. So this SIR exercise has in fact reduced the total number of registered voters in Bihar from 7.9 crores to 7.24 crores. Now, the Supreme Court will resume the hearing on the batch of the pleas on the matter, with the Election Commission all set to publish the final electoral roll on the 30th of September. So the court's decision will have a significant implication for the upcoming elections in Bihar. Legal editor Harish Nair is joining us on the broadcast with the details. Harish, good morning. It's a big day at the Supreme Court because the representatives from the political parties are also going to be present in the top court. But take us through what happened in the Supreme Court in the previous hearing. There were some directives for Election Commission, yes, but the Supreme Court had also questioned the political parties that had filed this plea.
Yes, good morning, Pratibha. In fact, a very important one more hearing in the Supreme Court. As you rightly said, on August 22nd, the Supreme Court had directed the state electoral officer to issue notices to 12 principal political parties in Bihar. That includes the BJP, RJD, Congress, Lok Janshakti Party, and the representatives were asked to personally, the president, working president or general secretary was asked to appear in the court today and also file affidavits, status reports as to what steps they have taken to in fact felicitate inclusion of 65 lakh voters from the draft list, except those who have died or they have migrated forever from the state of Bihar, because on the last date of hearing, Supreme Court had pulled up, saying that the political parties, rather than protesting, are not taking any initiative to help these voters. And going by the Election Commission records, only 33,000 applications have gone for inclusion and 1,33,000 are for deletion. So the question Supreme Court asked is, if the political parties had behaved more responsibly and with a sense of responsibility, things would have been much better. And as you rightly said, Pratibha, the Supreme Court also flagged trust deficit between political parties and Election Commission and took an unprecedented step of asking the State Legal Service Authority to depute paralegal volunteers to help the people who have been left out of the electoral road, because the political parties were not doing anything and were not cooperating with the Election Commission. So we have to wait and watch what direction the Supreme Court will pass today. The Supreme Court has been pulling up political parties for the last 2 hearings, saying that they are only protesting and are doing nothing to ensure that the SIR is successful.
Okay, all right. Harish, thank you for joining us with those details. We'll come back to you for those updates as a plea comes up in the Supreme Court. Political parties being pulled up saying you're protesting but not taking any action to ensure that any such doubts are alleviated. For the moment, let's shift our attention now, because it's a monsoon season and Punjab is battling one